I'm not sure. Yeah. I should have had that. Yeah. Who I do. No, that's all right. I do think we're going to be okay, especially in the second. We're going to get break at 8:30. That's pretty early. Usually it's been 15 to 20. So depending on. So no, I think we'll be okay. Yeah. We run over a bit. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna skip over it.
You can move the announcements at the end. When you go fly, okay. Just basically fly. We do go.
All right.
Yeah. As long as it doesn't take too far, I almost looked at the don't lose fast. Oh, yeah.
When does that start?
Like in the last Thursday.
No, I mean, in the evening. Oh, so it's our, oh, so most of the people that would have signed up for that would already be like.
One whole, the problem is there's multiple stages, multiple kinds of concerts.
Oh, so people can attend.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll give them a warning here.
2 minute warning. 2 minute warning. All right. Thank you, everyone. If you can please take your seats, we're going to get going. All right. Astrobits. Tony, do you want to come on down? This is your chance to tell us all about something interesting. Oh, Chris, our screen's dead. We're working on it. We've got some gremlins. Stand by one. Aliens again. Hey, we're good.
All right. Hello, everyone. So I've got a short astrobit this evening, inspired by a recent trip to my hometown of Luton. I wondered if there was any interesting astro trivia or history to be found in the town, and the name of Horace Dial came up. I hope you agree that he's also interesting enough to spend a few minutes talking about. First, some background, because not everyone here may be familiar with Luton. Here it is, just 50 kilometers north of London. It dates back to the medieval period and now has a population of about 200,000 people. For 100 years or so, the vehicle industry has been a major employer, and since the Second World War, the airport has become an important travel hub, offering vacation flights all over Europe, and has been at the leading edge of the low-cost airline revolution. You can see EasyJet has a big presence there. The town has a long-suffering football team and long-suffering fans. It's been up and down more often than a SpaceX rocket. They still play at this quaint Edwardian stadium, and the team nickname is the Hatters, which is a callback to the time when Luton was the straw hat capital of the world. Despite these highlights, it was a rather unremarkable town, but to a kid growing up there, it was just fine. And some 80 years before me, Horace Dahl was also growing up in Luton. His first job at age 14 was with the local aircraft manufacturer. This was in 1915 or so. But he soon switched to follow his father into a firm designing industrial gauges and meters. He worked in the R&D department, and I assume this is where he developed his craftsmanship and ingenuity. Because it's about this time that he was introduced to telescopes, small refractors to begin with, and it sounds like he quickly learned to modify and improve on them. Later in his 20s, he joined the British Astronomical Association and began to make his own optics. He remarked that he took to mirror grinding like a duck to water. On the bottom there is Horace's house that he had built in the 30s. I've driven past it dozens of times and can confirm that it sits high on a hill overlooking the town. And it's not just the perspective of the photo, it really is a little bit higher than the adjacent houses. Horace had the architect make it especially tall for the best views. And what did he do with that extra height? He designed and built a camera obscura in the attic. It would pop out of the roof like a periscope, and he could project images of the sun, the moon, and planets, or perhaps the cricket match happening across town. Oh, thank you. And there he is in front of the observatory, which he built in the back garden, where he did much of his planetary and lunar photography, for which he was acclaimed in the UK in the 50s and 60s. In the bottom is an example of his photo of Jupiter with a rare three-shadow transit. But what instrument was he using to get these remarkable, for the time, photographs? Well, of course, it was his own design, what came to be known as the Dal-Kirkham telescope. Mr. Kirkham was an American who independently came up with the same arrangement. So for a brief description of the optics, you start with a Cassegrain reflector, which had been around for 2 or 3 centuries, and that has a parabolic and hyperbolic mirrors. Horace changed the primary to elliptical and the secondary to spherical. On the downside, this suffers from off-axis coma, but the mirror grinding and collimation is much easier. Just imagine collimating a spherical secondary. All you need to do is line it up. There is no tilt adjustment required. And that enabled Horace to make these ingenious little collapsible scopes. Folds up to look a bit like a frying pan, and you can fit it in a jacket pocket. Then when it's needed, open the case, extend the secondary, and away you go. Of course, for photography, he needed something a little bit more serious. And on the right-hand side is his 16-inch truss tube scope that he built and installed in his observatory. For its time, this was considered a pretty monstrous aperture to be found in the home of an amateur. But with Horace's design and skill with mirrors, I bet it was no trouble at all. So perhaps one of the motivations for Horace to design his little travel scope is that he certainly traveled a lot. He says, "Life's too short for sleeping." From his teens, he would explore England as far as his bicycle would take him. And then when he had the means to travel internationally, the world was his oyster. One of his most remarkable trips was to cycle across the interior of Iceland in 1933, before any motor vehicle had managed it. It took 5 days, and the terrain was so rough that he had to walk most of it. Nevertheless, the farmer who saw him on the other side described him as a well-dressed man with polished shoes and a tie. To quote Dick Phillips, a later Iceland explorer, Horace Dahl was one of those people who overcame obstacles simply by not noticing that they were there. Thanks to affordable air travel, after his retirement, he saw the world. He ditched his bicycle for a Vespa and took it the whole way around Australia. He traveled the length of South America, and at the end in Patagonia, he met the woman who would become his second wife. In South Africa, he fearlessly tracked a rhino into the bush in an attempt to get the perfect photo. And in the Himalayas, he thought it would be much better to leave the tour, stay overnight in the monastery, and hike the 18 miles back to the hotel on mountain trails. His final big expedition included South and North America at age of 80, but it sounds like it was slightly derailed after he experienced a reaction to a tropical insect bite. Not to be outdone, he captured the insect and had it mounted up and took great pleasure in showing it off to friends and visitors through his stereo microscope. So it sounds like he collected enough memories for several people, but now almost 40 years after his death, what's his legacy? Well, if you fancy a little bit of telescope porn, then maybe you've come across these plane wave telescopes. For a very reasonable 600,000 US, you can have this CDK 1000, a nice 1-meter aperture scope, including the mount. Or if your budget can only stretch to 18,000, then perhaps this CDK 14. Of course, the CDK stands for corrected Dal-Kirkham. Put a correcting lens in front of the focal plane, and Horace's design is good enough for the very best professional scopes. I didn't talk too much about his work life, but he sounds quite ingenious and industrious. One invention that still bears his name today is the Dal tube. This is a little gadget for measuring the flow of fluid through a pipe, and it's more efficient and smaller than the alternatives. The British Astronomical Association honored him with an award in his name for a person who has shown marked ability in the making of astronomical instruments. Quite appropriate, I think. And finally, if you consider that if you're perusing a list of telescope designs, you'll find Horace's name alongside such greats as Isaac Newton and William Herschel. Not too bad for a boy from Luton. That's it. There are 2 or 3 articles there that go into a little bit more detail. If you have a bit of time, then I recommend the Vimeo video. It shows a very sprightly 80-year-old Horace giving a tour around his house and sharing some of his stories. It's a little window into a very interesting life and a different time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tony. Any questions for Tony this evening? That was a very interesting presentation. Chris, do we have any online? No? Okay, so thank you again. We're going to carry on. I think Brian is here, and Brian's our second presenter with a longer presentation this evening. So Brian, if you want to come on down, the podium's all yours.
Go forward. Below that is go back.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Don't mind me, I'll wear my hat because we're talking Australia. This is my genuine Jackaroo hat from Australia. I bought it in an op shop. So that's what they call it, thrift stores, opportunity shops down in Australia. All right. So my wife Bridget and I decided to take a trip down to Australia, starting in Brisbane. And the main purpose of our going down there was because our son lives in Brisbane with his Australian, he was living there with his Australian fiancée. So we were going to go down for a visit. And it was going to be our first holiday in about a dozen years. So we were really keen on going down. Here's the happy couple. So when we arrived in Brisbane, it was pouring rain, and it poured rain for the next 4 days leading up to their wedding. The forecast for their wedding was more of the same. This is what it turned out to be like. It was perfect weather. It was a perfect day. And Aaron and Nathan had a perfect day. It was really wonderful. And I have to say, they couldn't have been nicer hosts for us. All right. So where we went was we started off in Brisbane. And after the wedding, then Bridget and I went farther north up through Queensland. We took the Queensland Rail system going up north, stopping at a couple of places, stopping in Harvey Bay, Airlie Beach, and then finally Cairns, which they, of course, they pronounce Cairns incorrectly to my way of thinking. But where we are in Queensland, Cairns is 17 degrees south of the equator. And the Tropic of Capricorn was about 23.5 degrees, 24 degrees south. And the Tropic of Capricorn is the same as the Tropic of Cancer, except in the southern hemisphere. And it's the farthest point south where the sun will pass directly overhead on the December solstice. And in the northern hemisphere would be on the summer, our own summer solstice. So when you go to Australia from here, you got a bit of a journey for you. 5 hours to Vancouver, 15 hours nonstop from what we did from Vancouver straight into Brisbane. But when you're traveling on the aircraft and you see the little chart that they put up on the on the seat back, you can get to a point where you see nothing but blue. You can actually just zoom in just a bit more and you see nothing but blue. A couple of islands here and there, but that's it. So this is why it made a perfect spot for the for recovery of the Apollo spacecraft. So this is where Apollo 15 landed, just north of the Hawaiian Islands. But you can see from the other diagram on the lower right, you can see that's where they brought down some of the other Apollo spacecraft. Now, just about everybody we talked to before we were going, after we came back, their remark when we said we were going to Australia or slash had just got back from Australia was that, oh, there are more things in Australia that can kill you than anywhere else in the world. I think Oz gets a bad rap for that, but the top photo there is a lace monitor. We saw this in a park. There were people camping, and this thing was walking around their camper. So we were walking around, taking close-up shots of it, not getting too close. The croc down below was not in the same park. That was actually toward the end of our trip. It was in the Australia Zoo, Steve Irwin's Australia Zoo. But we saw things, exotic things. An ibis. I thought, wow, I mean, you see these things in, in Egyptian lore and everything. I was fascinated. I couldn't wait to see my second ibis until Nathan's now wife said that, she calls them, they say down here, we call them bin chickens. So they're basically the same as seagulls picking out of garbage cans. And sure enough, they were everywhere doing just that, but still look kind of neat. Saw this kookaburra. We had kookaburras every morning right outside Nathan and Aaron's house, and it sounded like something out of an Animal Crackers commercial or something. It was exotic. There's a cockatoo. Lots of those around. And these guys. So this was the park where the lace monitor was. So you could go up to this park. You could go right up to these kangaroos. I mean, we didn't go too close, but I mean, they had nursing joeys there. There were joeys in the pouch, and it looked kind of funny sometimes to see the mother kangaroo with her head down, eating, and there's this head poked out of the pouch, also eating from the grass. And later, when we went up to Cairns, we went into the, we were going to go and try and get out to see the barrier reef, but the water was too choppy and we wouldn't have seen anything from a boat. So we went up to the aquarium in Cairns instead. And so it's a very pregnant male seahorse. And they weren't sure. They thought it would have been ready to give birth to all the babies, but not while we were there. So at least we didn't see this guy. This is the meat-eating fanged kangaroo. Or the tree-climbing crocodile. This is the one that got me. I just can't imagine having this 2-meter croc climbing up a tree after you. But to me, this was the creepiest of them all. I don't know what it is about a koala's face, but those, I don't know, the eyes and the hard nose, it just, you know what it looks like? I think like a teddy bear that's sort of come to life, but it knows something you don't. So I wasn't a fan. And just while we're observing something, this is apropos of nothing. So everywhere you went, like every 5 minutes on the train, the landscape was changing entirely. It was amazing. But look at this. Am I the only one who sees this? I thought it was kind of an interesting shape, but so I have to do a bit more study to see is that just a natural phenomenon? I believe it is, but anyway. All right. So when we get into the tropics, nightfall comes early. I remember that when I was in the Navy, down in the Caribbean and that, going through the Panama Canal, and suddenly it's night. Boom. So as dusk is falling, then by some kind of magic signal, all these fruit bats, flying foxes, take flight out of the trees, thousands of them. And they're big, right? Like their wingspan is, some of them are close to a meter wide. So you don't want one of these things hitting your windshield, that's for sure. But it was just like I say, a signal was going up, the bats came out, and it was a glorious sight to see. That was one of my favorite sights in Australia. So as anyone who really knows me, I'm useless at astrophotography, especially at night. But so that's a little bit of light from the moon in the background there. And if you see that palm tree, the tallest palm tree, and the frond going over to the left, just below it, there's a little dot. That's Mars. But then we see Castor and Pollux, but the orientation was different because we're in the southern hemisphere. So normally we would see Castor on top, Pollux on the bottom, and Mars the other way. So I was keen to see some of the southern sky while we were down there. I was looking forward to seeing the Magellanic Clouds. We never did see them because it was raining for the first bunch of days, and then after that it was a lot of cloud in the evening. We just really didn't get a good opportunity to see that. But we had a couple of clear opportunities, I'll say, but the Magellanic Clouds were too lost in the trees and that, so we couldn't see them. But when we're looking toward the southern pole, we're looking at the Southern Cross. On the left there, we could see the Eta Carinae Nebula, and over on the right, down at the right there, circled, we could see Orion, which was upside down. So when we were walking around, I mean, we see things like this. I was looking at this section of the sky with binoculars, and it was just nice. I didn't go down there with the idea of making it an astronomical trip, but I wanted that to be part of it too. So what I could get, we could get, and that was fine. But what was interesting was that I really wanted to see a lunation. So we were just starting with the new moon, the first phases of the moon, and what I really wanted to see was everything coming up the wrong way in the sky. So where we live up in the northern hemisphere, when we see the sun and moon, they're mainly going over the equator, you could say. All right, they're in line with the equator. So we look south to the equator. If you're looking south to the equator, then in a sense, east is on your left, west is to your right, and we're used to seeing the sun come up on our left, go highest in the south, and set to the right in the west. So if you go to the southern hemisphere, you want to go look back to the equator, you're looking up from the south, you're looking north to see the same thing. So now, east is still east in the same direction, but now the apparent motion, you're seeing the sun and the moon coming up from the right and setting to the left. And it's a really strange thing to see. You could look at that and you say, what's wrong with this picture? But I was looking forward to that. We actually stopped and talked to a lot of people as we're walking along the pathways and that to explain how this worked. And sometimes, use anything for a prop. So I would use my belly sometimes to say, okay, if you're in the northern equator here, right, here's the view. And there were people from England that we talked to, and they had no idea that they were seeing a different sky. We talked to people from Australia, right from different parts of Australia who were visiting some of the little resort areas where we were. And it's the same thing. Not everybody knows. So what we do with our sidewalk astronomy, whether it's doing a program at CARP or if we're doing something at a museum here, every opportunity is a chance to just open somebody's eyes a little bit more to, oh, I never realized that. And you're turning them on to something entirely new. So here's the way the moon was coming up. So I had to catch it in a bit later phase because of the cloudy skies. So on the left, so this is a little model of the moon, a lit up model. So this is the way we normally see the face of the moon. And you can see the Sea of Tranquility, Sea of Serenity, Sea of Tranquility, and the Sea of Crises, Mare Crisium, over on the far right on that left-hand image, the little round Mare. In the right-hand image, not only is it the other way around, it's upside down. That's the view we get. So now this is what I was seeing, right? So this is the view, because we're looking south to the equator. Here we're looking north to the equator. So I took a series of photos from our hotel in Airlie Beach, and the moon was coming up, and the right-hand photo would be coming up from the right, going up, 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 up to the left. So going backwards through the sky, and the phases are a little bit different there, but I just matched them up so we could see the apparent motion. And if you go there, if you want to set up your scope or something, if you say, well, okay, maybe we'll get a bit of a dark sky. If you want to set up a telescope, Australia, in Queensland, they've got the most beautiful beaches. The color of the water is to die for. Beautifully groomed beaches and virtually nobody on them. People are walking on the pathways. Or they're in the lagoons. So what they do is they put artificial water parks alongside a beautiful ocean. Of course, there's a reason why you don't go into the ocean there, because they've got warnings, right? Here's another shot of a beach with the moon. Actually, there's the moon in the center of the image there. All right. So you are in crocodile country. Now, when we were in Airlie Beach, the day we were leaving, the authorities had to capture a 4.5 meter crocodile because some fool had taken a dead pig carcass and tied it to the bottom of the boat ramp. So that attracted a croc. Now, what the signs will tell you and the museums tell you, a fed croc is a dead croc. So it either has to be euthanized or has to be rehomed, as they call it, because a crocodile will just then keep coming back to the same spot again and again and again. So that was right in a public area, so they had to remove it. The other problem, other than these guys, you see signs like this on the beaches. You have to watch out for the near invisible box jellyfish, which have long, long tentacles and they're venomous. So if you get into that, and there's a certain period of the year in Australia, in Queensland, northern Queensland, you do not go into the water because the chances of getting stung by a jellyfish are quite good. And while adults can usually withstand a whip lashing from the tentacles of these jellyfish, these stingers, sometimes they're fatal to children. So all of that being said, and with the sign clearly posted, I took this picture. Oh, there's, okay, somebody lying on the beach. They tell you if you're going to be on the beach, stay about 50 meters up from the water's edge. Gives you time to outrun a croc, I think. But here's this guy, starts going into the water. Now, I watched him. He waded into the water, and I thought, wow, he's giving me the willies just watching him do it. And he went right in and then ducked underneath, kind of where the arrow is. So I turned around. I was distracted for a second, and I turned around. I actually never saw the guy again. So I don't know. Gult. It pays to watch your back. You never know who's going to photobomb your shot there. So doing a bit of sidewalk astronomy, I know this is a bit of a travelogue here, just a fun thing because we saw some sky, we had a chance to talk to people. And toward the end of the last couple of days that we were there, Nathan and Aaron drove us up to the Australia Zoo that Steve Irwin and his family were running. And so that was our final event for our trip in Australia. We were 3 weeks there. And there's Steve with that nice sign there, except he's holding one of those creepy critters. But they had a crocoseum there, so they do a crocodile show at the zoo. So there we're all lined up in this, and there's a waterway where the croc comes in, and then they go around. But look who's doing the show with them. So in the middle, that's Terry Irwin, right? Steve Irwin's American wife, and his daughter Bindi. She was just feeding the croc there, and his son Robert on the other side. So that was kind of interesting to see the people that we see on TV. And the thing about the zoo there is that they live on the premises. And in a sense that with the zoo, it's more like the people are fenced out rather than the animals being fenced in. You get that kind of sense of it. And there we are, just on our last day. So it was a fun trip. And like I say, we had opportunities here and there to talk to people either about the sky or different things that we do with our programs here in Ottawa. So it was a good fun. And that's it. All right. Thank you. Any questions at all? Any crocodile questions? No? Okay, thank you. What's that?
Thank you again, Brian. I can't help but wonder now, are crocodiles nocturnal? You might want to really think about where you set up your telescope down there. Any questions from the audience or online? Chris, any online? Oh, okay. Well, we'll let them sort it out. So, any in the room? No? Okay, so we're going to go on to our observation reports for the past month. And Tony, you're back down.
All right, back again. So I went through the monthly challenge, globular clusters, and I'll just run through them because they all look pretty similar. M13 is the Great Hercules cluster. It's one of the finest Northern Hemisphere clusters. And I got out to flow I think 3 weeks ago for a very nice evening. I dusted off my Newtonian scope and did a quick collimation, and I got a few exposures. I think it came out quite nice. It's processed in Pix Insight with all of the AI help that will give you. So that's M13. Over a little bit is M92, also in Hercules. What are the details? Let's see, these clusters are all about 100, 150 light years across, and between 300,000 and 500,000 stars in them, estimated. M92 is interesting because the precession of the Earth's axis will bring this round to be almost the pole star in about 14,000 years. And the last one on the list was NGC 6229. This is a little bit further away. But again, when you look at the sizes, they're all about the same actual size. But this was about, I think, twice as far away. No, 3 times as far away as the other two, which obviously makes it look a lot smaller. I'm just going to put this up briefly. I also did some sketching at the Star Master. It's interesting in that when you compare your sketch to the photo afterwards, what you thought looked so obvious, then suddenly you can't see any of the stars at all, or it doesn't seem to make any sense. Except this one, there's this kind of nice trapezium here, which you can see here, and here, with a cluster at the focus. So there, at least, I got a recognizable stars. Lastly, this was not on the observing challenge, but a little bit of a challenge nonetheless. This combination is known as the flying bat and squid. So in red, in hydrogen, you can see the flying bat. This is a sharpless emission nebula, which was found by Mr. Sharpless, maybe I think in the 1950s. The blue, which is the squid, which shows up in the oxygen filter, was only discovered in about 2011 by a French amateur called Nicolas Auters. That's why it gets the name OU4. It was his 4th nebula he discovered. It's a planetary nebula. Their best guess is that the 2 nebulas occupy the same space, which would make the squid approximately 50 light years long. So it's a pretty big squid. And that was taken from Ottawa over the course of 3 or 4 nights. The squid is so faint that it literally doesn't show up in a single 10-minute exposure. It was only when it started stacking that you could make sense of it. Even so, that's about the limit of what my exposures and processing could make of it. But yeah, not too bad. Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Tony. And next up is Jim, which I believe, Jim, you're connecting from your cottage, correct?
That's correct. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you great.
Excellent. So, I was not able to join the RAS group at the museum on Canada Day because I was at my cottage in Sheenborough, Quebec, which is up on the Ottawa River across from Petawawa. So I instead was running my own daytime outreach. This is a few photos from the event. My setup there in the middle image was a simple alt-az mount with an 80mm scope and hydrogen alpha filters on it. An image I captured during the day in the upper right. So there were some very nice prominences there to share with everybody. And then there's a panorama shot on the bottom. It's a big event for the local community, lots of family out. There's a live band, and there's obviously lots of beer being drank. So it was a good time. And then that day cleared up to be perfect for some electronically assisted astronomy, which is what the next photo, please. So there's the view from the beach at my cottage. And I can actually hand my camera around. You can get a better view of my setup here. So it's a simple Alt-Az mount, literally on the beach. 80mm refractor and a 50mm camera lens on a ASI camera. So super wide view and a tighter view. So that's what I've been using for the last and a half. And as you can see, it's hard to take a bad picture of a sunset here. Pretty much every night, especially when there's wildfire smoke, you get a pretty nice sunset. So next image, please. So these are some examples taken from, there's two observing sessions that I've had since I've been up here on holiday, once on the 1st and another on the 3rd. Both were unusually transparent nights. I don't know if anybody else was out around those dates, but up here, transparency was very good. Humidity was extremely low, so they were excellent nights. And they allowed me to see some of the best views of objects in the deep southern Milky Way from our location here at Canada. These are 4 of some of my favorite captures. The Prawn Nebula, which is way down close to the horizon. The upper right is the Cat's Paw, which is one of the few nebulae that actually looks like the name. Looks actually like a cat's paw. Lower left is the Lobster Nebula, which is quite close to the Cat's Paw. And then it's kind of hard to make out, but the cluster that's in the middle of the image in the lower right is M6, Messier 6, the butterfly cluster. And if you kind of tilt your head and see the 2 wings of a butterfly outlined by the stars in the cluster. So to give you an idea just how low in the sky I was, we'll go to the next image, please. This is the wide view shot from the camera on the 50mm camera lens. And I've pointed to the objects that I showed you in the previous slide. So the prawn there, bottom middle, cat's paw, lobster, and the butterfly going in an upwards to the left direction. The blue lines connect stars in the tail of Sagittarius. And the lowest object that I could really make out at all was Eta Scorpio, or Scorpii, at just over a degree above the horizon. So that, for me, at this location is really unusual. Normally, there's so much haze in the atmosphere and smoke, I would never be able to see that low. Thank you, Dwight, Scorpii. And also important to note, the lights that you see on the horizon there, that's the town of Petawawa. So I'm looking right over top of a moderate-sized town, and I'm still getting very good transparency. So I was very, very pleased with how those 2 evenings turned out. The next slide is a couple more examples of some of my favorites from those 2 evenings. Sort of the summertime hits, if you will. So M8, the lagoon, that's the main bright nebula in the upper left. It's accompanied by Messier 20. That's the top of the frame, the Trifid Nebula. And then to the left is a bunch of miscellaneously named objects, the brightest one being NGC 6559. So that's kind of a very interesting, complex part of the sky. It's very much worth observing. You can even see the lagoon naked eye from a reasonably dark sky. Going clockwise, Messier 24, which is just above the Trifid in the sky, that's actually, it looks like a bright nebula, but we're actually looking through a hole in the cloud of dust between us and the center of our galaxy there. So that's kind of cool. Kind of you're looking through the keyhole, as it were. Lots of thick globs of cold dust and gas in that image. Makes it very cool and dramatic image. These images, by the way, are all hydrogen alpha filter images, 2.5 nanometer filter, very narrow. And they are 30 frames. Is it 30? Yeah, 30 frames stacked of 30-second sub-exposures. So about 15 minutes total accumulated frames per image. Okay, continuing clockwise, M16, the Eagle Nebula. It's a bit hard to make out the eagle in the middle there, the pillars of creation, because I've upped the exposure to see all the extensive faint nebulosity around that object. And then finally M17, the Swan or the Omega Nebula, which is actually lower in the sky than M16. And again, I've overexposed the central part a bit just so we can see all the really cool stuff going around on the outside. And to put all of these into perspective, the next image shows where they are all placed in the sky. So next image, please, Chris. I just get a blank. Oh, there it is. So there we are. There's the lagoon there at the bottom. And about in the middle of the frame is M24. And then the next bright thing we see going upwards is M17, and then followed by M16. So even though a lot of people observe only those messy objects, bright objects, easy to see with a small telescope, there is a lot going on in this part of the sky, which is why I really enjoy observing from the beach, where I can see the southern sky very clearly. Anyway, that's it from me, the Beach Bum Observatory. I'll catch you all next month.
Thank you very much, Jim. And we suspect you might be up a little later tonight, right? So, okay,
Yeah, I'm
moving
set up,
on.
ready to go here. Yeah.
Good stuff. There we go. So, Taras, you're up next. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I have a couple of pictures to start with. This one, which is M81 and M82 Cigar Galaxy and Bose Galaxy, which I took from North Frontenac Dark Sky Preserve at around end of May. So why this is a bit special, because it's my one of the first experiments with the narrowband imaging, and I used a combination of hydrogen alpha plus oxygen data, and to balance the colors for the stars, I used green filter as well. So hydrogen alpha was used for red color, for red channel. Oxygen went into blue, and green I added to balance the picture. These two objects are known for being our relatively close neighbors. They're in the same cluster of galaxies in our neighborhood. So the the Cigar Galaxy, for instance, is 11 million light years away from us, which is still considered to be our neighborhood. And I like how the hydrogen lines in red showed up in here, and as well as in both in the two arms of the galaxy, there is a red glow of hydrogen showing as well. The next image is the Dumbbell Nebula. Everyone probably knows it. It's a really bright object, about magnitude 7.5. You can easily see it even with binoculars, and it's about 1,300 light years away from us, which is much closer, obviously, than the galaxies. But what's prominent about it is that it's typical example of a star exploding and shedding its outer layers. There's this tiny little white dwarf right in the middle, and the red color corresponds again to the hydrogen, while the bluish glow comes from the oxygen. Same as with the previous picture, I used green channel separately to counter for the color balance for the stars. And what I'm kind of proud of is that this was taken from my backyard next to bright pole with a lamp, probably as far as from me to pole. So the narrowband filters did help, and especially the fact that it showed the image showed, oops, a little bit of shock waves from the explosion, which you can see a little bit here and there. And if I were to increase or stretch the image, histograms, there is a little bit here on the sides as well, but they don't usually, you have to go for longer exposures. However, this was less than 2-hour exposure altogether. Next slide, so the planets, this also was taken the same night when I took the 2 galaxies from North Frontenac around 3 a.m. It was already getting quite bright, so around this time, Saturn is rising. It's quite high around 3 o'clock, and the only problem is that both Saturn and Venus, by the way, is rising much later, so it was still lower above the horizon, but both of them have this glow around them, which you can see clearly on this screen, but it comes from the low transparency. In the morning, there was already fog coming in, and the images were kind of blurred with the glow of light around where the background should be really bright. Black. What is special about this Saturn image, as you see, the rings are actually dark. And it's not just my pictures. I checked a few of them from other photographers online, and that's what they look like now these days. I could barely see them actually through the telescope. And the reason for that, I had to go to Stellarium and see what's going on. So the Stellarium actually shows, this is the ground level. The Saturn was around this altitude that night, and the direction of sunlight comes this way to Saturn. And this is the view of observer, not through the telescope, but by someone who would observe it from the ground. So Stellarium has this feature that you can zoom in the object much closer and see the details, which I did. And I tried to preserve this green line showing the direction of sunlight while zooming in. And as you see that the direction of the light is such that this top part of rings is illuminated, while the bottom part remains in the shadow. And this is the part which we saw in the image like this. The only difference that the camera was under this angle. And so right now, the rings are quite dark. I didn't have a chance to check for how long it's going to be, but instead I checked what's going to be happening next with them. And apparently, this angle, if you think of a z coordinate towards us, and the angle under which the rings are facing us, they're getting even flatter with every next week now, and almost disappear again in around October, like last weeks of October of this year. What's interesting is that this time, unlike in March, when they were almost disappeared, this time this planet will be on the opposite side of the sun. So we'll be able to see that in the middle of the night quite clearly, and the planet is going to be quite high. It's going to be interesting to see how the rings would look like that night. Thank you.
comment, Sun's sun is actually going to be shining on the ring. Titan's shadow is actually going across it.
We're just going to get you to repeat that comment with the microphone.
So because the sun is going to be shining directly on the plane of the rings, and essentially the shadow of the rings on the planet will disappear, but it also means that the shadows of the moons are going across the disk. And Titan's shadow is actually large enough that you can quite easily see it in a telescope. And this only happens every sort of twice every time Saturn goes around the sun. I can't remember what its orbital period is. Somebody knows, I know.
Okay, does anyone know what the orbital period is?
Okay. Anyway, something like 20 years. So it's like every 10 or 15 years or something that that this is visible.
Great,
I
thank
think
you.
the next one is on July 18th.
Super. Any other questions? Comments? No? Okay.
Thank you very much, Taras. All right, next up we should have Paul. You're up.
Thank you. All right. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, most of July I spent on vacation, and one of my haunts this summer was again Lake Superior Provincial Park on the north shore of Lake Superior. It's really a stunning place, wonderfully dark skies and fabulous geology if you're interested in that as well. And in June, it was a great place to escape the heat dome that had moved over much of Ontario. I was fortunate to have some interesting evenings there, and just have a few images that I'd like to share from that. This is a daytime view of the water's edge beside my campsite up there. I show this to put the nighttime views that I'm about to show into a bit of context. As you can see, the site offers a wonderfully open view of over Lake Superior and the beach where I set up for astroimaging. And it wasn't exactly crowded. God love those shoulder seasons. All right, so daytime view that was taken from a point that's jutting out into the lake, as you'll see. So while many of the days that I had there were quite clear, the evenings were a little bit more challenging with humidity, with humid air lying over that was lying over Ontario at the time, and certainly that manifested itself over Lake Superior. The nighttime views frequently sported fogs rolling onto the land from the lake. And as you can see here, you can see the fog bank off to the right-hand side over Lake Superior. This view shows the rocky point that where I took the picture that I just showed you there. And this view, I show this because it was kind of a surprising night. I didn't think I'd get much out of this night, but it's all lit up like that because the moon is just on the rise there and behind the silhouette of that rocky point. And I thought when I first saw this, I thought this is really going to limit my, what I might see in the night sky. Because the moon was looking pretty bright, and with the fog, you're getting a lot of scatter. But I was in for a bit of a surprise. Oh, Chris, can I get you to roll that back one? And I think you have to click on the image to activate the video. There we go. So this is a 360-degree camera that I was using, and 180 degrees from where that moon was rising. I actually photographed something that I'd never seen or imaged before. I caught a moonbow, which really struck me there. I was looking over that and I thought, is that an aurora? Or no, that's not an aurora. It's the wrong shape. It's the wrong color. It's basically just white. And you can see the moon starting to light up the beach, sort of towards in that direction, certainly further away from me. And that persisted for about 10 or 15 minutes. I'd never seen one of those before, and I thought that was really cool. I watched this for a while and I thought, okay, well, that's, that was interesting. That made the night worthwhile. And I was getting ready to pack up, but then I noticed that the fog was starting to dissipate. And what I saw then was clouds moving in. The fog had almost lifted, but there were a roll of clouds coming in from Lake Superior. And at the horizon, right at the north, there was an aurora, which I hadn't seen, like 15 minutes previous. So that was a treat as well. Very unexpected there. I didn't think with that type bright of a moon up that I would see anything like that. So certainly made the night interesting. All right. The following night, same place, same location, different camera I was using. It was totally clear, and again, I had an auroral display, which was even better than the previous night, and there was no fog to limit the visibility out well into towards the lake. So yeah, I didn't have any internet or anything up there, so I wasn't getting any like updates on the potential for auroras. These were just fluky catches that I was able to make, which was a treat. All right. One of the other places I visited, and I'm just really going through these quickly. I didn't bring too many of my travel shots, but I also spent some time down in Killbear Provincial Park, which is near Parry Sound on the eastern shore of Georgian Bay. I hadn't been there in a long, long time, probably since high school, so a couple of years ago. And still a beautiful sight, pretty dark up there. Not as dark as Lake Superior, but certainly nice skies. Again, Killbear is a very popular park, but in June it's a nice time to get up there. It's not too crowded or anything. And we had a beautiful sight that gave me a vista out over the bay here. And as you can see, the Milky Way was quite prominent, and there was no moon in the sky. So nice deep views, nice for binocular. I was doing a lot of binocular stuff there, not concentrating too much on the imagery, and yeah, splendid views there. I think the light dome that you're seeing there down at the base of the Milky Way. I looked at the geometry of this, and I think that's actually generated from Midland and maybe Barrie, but those towns are on the order of 100 kilometers to the south there, so they're just kind of lighting up a little bit there. But yeah, the rest of the sky was beautifully dark. So it's been an interesting summer. I'm planning a few other trips to various parts. So hopefully we'll get some clear weather. And it was nice actually being in both of those locations because, as I said, there was a heat dome over Ontario at that time. And it was nice being by the water. The temperatures, certainly up by Lake Superior, were like on the order of 22, 23 degrees during the day when it was like 30 here in the Ottawa area. So I really lucked out with the weather. It was a good time to go. All right. So fast forward to 10 days ago. And on July 1st, it was announced that there's been a discovery of an object. This is the third known interstellar object to enter our solar system. You may recall from the meeting a couple of months ago that I did an astrobits piece on one of those objects, Oumuamua, which was the first one. That entered our system in 2017. That was followed about 2 years later by comet Borisov, which I actually managed to image at that point in time. Oumuamua was, yeah, that was beyond my pay grade, certainly beyond my telescope's ability. But this object, yeah, it was announced July the 1st. This was discovered by the ATLAS system, which is the NASA's Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, ATLAS, easier to say. And it's about as I say, this is July 1st. It's about 4.5. It was about 4.5 astronomical units away from the sun. So just inside the orbit of Jupiter, and approaching really fast. And the reason we know this is interstellar is we've plotted the course and the trajectory and the speed, and it's coming in really hot, like 61 kilometers a second on a hyperbolic trajectory. So it's moving along, and unfortunately, it's right now it's actually in the stars, in amongst the stars of the Milky Way, as you'll see in a second. So it's very faint. It's on the order of magnitude, plus 17.5 to plus 18. But so 4 days after it was discovered, after I learned about this, I thought, I wonder if it's possible to capture this at all, because it is very, very dim. The moon was certainly a factor, and or starting to be a factor, and the skies in the last week have been less than wonderful at my place there. In fact, the night that I shot what I'm about to show you is um, there was a lot of haze in the sky, and clouds intermittently moving through. So I did manage to capture this thing. And sorry, it's rather grainy there. As again, the seeing was terrible, and the sky was. Ordinarily, I wouldn't have done anything on this night, but I knew that the rest of the week, leading up until tonight, would be even worse as the moon got higher and higher, and we just had full moon, as Dave mentioned there. So I did manage to catch this little beastie at about magnitude, like I say, about plus 17.5. And how do I know it's that? Well, I did manage to catch a series of shots in between the thin clouds and the haze moving through. And I'll roll that one. You can see this is a series of 11 shots taken over a span of about almost an hour. And it's a good thing I did this, because as you can see, there's a lot of light blotches that look exactly like this little comet there. As I say, it's in a busy part of the Milky Way, and I'm surprised I managed to pick this off at all. So that's it, moving through about an hour's worth of sky, and then it clouded over on me. And basically, I was hoping to catch a smoother sequence there, but I had to settle for the 11 images that comprise this GIF file, because the rest of them in between were just you couldn't see that particular blotch. It was just the seeing was terrible, or it was just too hazy. But it was enough to show the way. All right. And so for the eagle-eyed folks in the crowd, you may have noticed as you were watching this that there was something else moving in the sky at the same time, as is indicated here. And I didn't notice that object because it's probably a magnitude fainter than the comet itself. But it kind of took me aback, because when you see its motion, at first I thought, why does this comet have a companion moving in a parallel direction? Like, that just kind of freaked me out. I thought, is this like, did something fracture off this comet, or is it not a comet, and like, is it like an alien invasion and this is an armada coming through? I don't know. Anyway, it took me a bit aback, but then I thought, I got to solve this. And so I basically took all the 11 images and superimposed them into one frame, and realized that the paths, while similar, were not parallel. And obviously the speed of motion of that secondary object was slower than the comet itself. So relax, you don't have to worry about an armada coming through, at least not this time around. I think we're good to go. Anyway, this comet, Atlas, is not going to get terribly close to Earth. It's going to make its closest approach to the sun. Let me just check my notes here. I think it's October. Where are we there? Yeah, it's in late October, and we'll see it we'll see it best here, which is actually not best, very good at all, in December, when it rounds the sun and is on its way out. But it's only expected to, from a point of view of Earth, it's only expected to reach a magnitude of plus 11 or so, which is substantially brighter than it is now, but still pretty faint for a comet. Might be enough for a good sized pair of binoculars. Should be able to see it in a reasonably small telescope, but you got to know where to look. Like this, the only way I was able to target this is because I consulted the JPL database once the numbers were published, and I was able to aim my scope pretty much right on target there. It was basically, even though the numbers were pretty young and fresh, they were pretty accurate, and I was able to pinpoint point it that way. It will be better when it's magnitude 11, but comets can also be surprising, and who knows? Right now, best estimates for this thing is that it has a nucleus perhaps 4 to 10 kilometers in diameter, and it may brighten up, as most of you know that who have spent any time looking at comets, it may brighten up substantially, more than the prediction of 11, magnitude 11. So, but chances are pretty high that it will not become a visual object. But still, it's going to be remain of interest to both amateur and professional astronomers, just because it's an interstellar object. And some folks, some groups have run calculations on this, and have come up with a preliminary assumption that this thing may actually be older than our sun. Like, it may have been wandering through interstellar space, for billions of years, even before our sun and planetary system formed. So there's a lot of interest. I know that unlike Oumuamua, which was discovered on its way out, and we didn't really have a long opportunity to look at this, we know this thing is inbound. We know it's interstellar, and a lot of the big scopes, including Hubble and Webb, will undoubtedly be checking this thing out, because they are rare opportunities. It has been 5 years now since 6 years now since the last such object, Borisov, moved through the system. So stay tuned. I hope to follow this, because I just find this intrinsically interesting. Hope to follow this up and catch a few more images while it makes its passage through our inner solar system. Thank you much. Oh, yes. I don't know. I don't know. I consulted some databases, but I think it probably needs a more an extensive search than I was able to do. My guess is that because of the way the comet is inbound and its height above the solar system's plane with respect to us, I get this feeling that this is an asteroid. It's an asteroid, and because we're kind of looking along the top of the asteroid belt, and this is where this thing is wandering through right now. Or it could conceivably be another comet, like a periodic comet that's a member of our solar system. I did not find data on it there, but it's something that I'm hoping to dig a little bit deeper into, just because I'm curious that, I mean, this is fairly high magnification on this image, and that object was only about 1.25 arc minutes away from the comet itself. So it was kind of coincidental that, these two faint objects would be in this tight little field of view at the same time. But that would be my guess, either an asteroid or one of our own comets. Okay.
Thank you, Paul. All right. And Richard.
Okay, so the challenge objects for this month were in the constellation of Hercules. So this is a picture I took from FLO a bit more than a month ago now. This was at the end of May. Just with a regular camera, an M100 camera on a tripod, no guiding, no tracking. And if you're just looking up at the sky, this is the kind of thing that you would see. And the easy thing to detect about Hercules, of course, is the trapezium, 4 reasonably bright stars in an area that doesn't have very many stars. It is also between a couple of fairly easy to spot constellations. So down in the lower corner here, we have a very bright star, Vega, in the constellation of Lyra. And Hercules is right next door to it. And it's also between Lyra and Corona Borealis, which we were talking about last year because of the blaze star that never showed up. So Hercules is a fairly easy constellation to spot. We were talking last month about the constellation of Draco. Up here, there's the head of Draco, and Hercules kind of attaches on to there as well. In the next slide, I've drawn the lines of the constellation and labeled the other constellations around it as well. Now, the other challenge objects for this month were the globular clusters that we've already seen some images of. They were M13 about there, M92 about there, and the NGC 266, I'm forgetting now, 6229 up in the top corner as well. So here's my effort at taking a picture of all three of the globular clusters. These are all taken with the same optics, same kind of exposures. It was with my William Optics refractor. Again, taken from FLO on the 27th of May. And each one was a stack of about 25, 30-second exposures. At the same image scale, you see M13 is huge. M92 is still quite an impressive size, a lot of stars you can see in there. But NGC 6229 is quite small. All of them are about the same size in reality, it's just that they're different distances from us. Now, the solar system challenge this month was Mars, and I was traveling in France for most of this month, so I had to make opportunities as I could find them. I didn't have much astronomical equipment with me. I just had my regular camera with a long zoom lens. So on the night of the 16th of June, I happened to be in Cluny, and that was when Mars was going to be making a lovely conjunction with Regulus. So I went out that night, and where I was in France, my location within the time zone, as well as the higher latitude, actually, were more like latitude 50. It did not get dark until very, very late. This was about 10:40 in the evening, and the sky was still blue. I could only see the very brightest stars. So I did spot Regulus, and I aimed the camera. And as I say, I didn't have my equipment along, so my tripod was a stone wall and my hat. But that was good enough, and I got this nice pairing of Regulus and Mars in the middle here. On the original photograph, I can actually see some of the sickle shape of Leo as well. And then later on in the month, on the 29th of June, I was in another location in France, and that was when Mars was supposed to be close to the moon. But again, being in a different geographical location, much farther east from here, and the moon was already setting behind some trees, Mars really wasn't very close to the moon at all at that location. Some other people did get pictures of it from Canada, and then Mars was more like there. So not a greatly impressive picture for this one. And then before we came home, we actually dropped off to see some relatives in Peacehaven on the south coast of England. And one of Peacehaven's claims to fame is that it's actually on the Greenwich Meridian. So they have this monument right there on the coast, and the line in the sand marking the position of the Greenwich Meridian. So there I am with 1 foot in each hemisphere. And that's the plaque on the monument there, saying this is to mark Peacehaven's position on the prime meridian of Greenwich. So there's my traveler's tale for the month. Okay, so there's the observing challenges for June. Looking on Discord, Mark Lilienthal made a lovely composite picture of Hercules and the three globular clusters. You've already seen Tony Jarrett's pictures and eyepiece sketches. Xavier also got pictures of M13 and M92, and Mark and Taras both caught the Moon and Mars on June 29th. So for July, look up, straight up, and Cygnus and the Milky Way are right overhead. Now, Cygnus is a pretty prominent and bright constellation, especially the tail of the swan, Deneb. That's one of the three stars in the summer triangle here, Vega, Altair, Deneb. So it's a fairly prominent set of stars that you'll be able to see on any dark night, even from the city. For Cygnus, again, the main part of Cygnus is something called the Northern Cross, which is here and here. But if you want to see the rest of the constellation, there's actually several more stars making up a much wider wingspan of the swan. The difficulty with Cygnus is if you go out to a darker place like FLO or out to cottage country and you look up, you'll see the Milky Way. And it can get actually quite difficult to see the constellation of Cygnus because there are so many other stars up there. So actually, I think if you want to see the Northern Cross part of Cygnus, looking up from Ottawa, somewhere like the Experimental Farm or a reasonably dark place away from the street lights, you'll be able to see the constellation much more easily if there is a bit of light pollution blocking the rest of the Milky Way. For the other challenge objects, with binoculars, if you look up towards Deneb, and then just a little bit below, there's quite a large nebula here called the North American Nebula. You've probably all seen pictures of it, but it really is very big and reasonably bright. So binoculars will be able to catch it from a dark location. Now it is reddish, so your eyes are not as sensitive to red light, and it's going to get washed out if there's any light pollution or a moon nearby or anything like that. But for the rest of the next 2 or 3 weeks, you should be able to wait for the moon or catch it fairly early in the evening before the moon gets in the way. For the next challenge, a little bit more difficult. If you go down to this wing of the swan, there's an area of nebulosity all through here called the Veil Nebula or the Cygnus Loop. Now, the two brightest parts of it are the parts making up the, part of the circular loop. It is actually a supernova remnant, so it's in the form of a big circle. But there's also a wispy little triangle in the middle, which is now called Fleming's Triangle. And that's a bit more of a challenge to get a picture of that. I'm not sure about the visual observation of it. It is pretty faint, but a nebula filter like an oxygen filter might actually help with that. And then for the even more challenging, if you go near the central star, which is Satyr or Gamma Cygni, right beside that is a lot more nebulosity, and there's a section which is sometimes called the Butterfly Nebula. Now, this is different from the butterfly cluster that we saw earlier tonight. This is a nebula, and the body of the butterfly is a dark piece of nebulosity, and then there's two patches of bright nebulosity on either side making the wings. Now, again, this is not going to be visual. This will have to be a photograph, but is a very interesting area to get pictures of because there's so much nebulosity in this particular area. So see what you can do with those ones. Certainly everybody should be able to see Cygnus and possibly the North American Nebula. It's actually a very easy object to photograph. I've been taking photographs of it since I was using film way back in the 1990s. So it's not too difficult to get a picture of that. Probably any digital camera, cell phone camera would do these days because they are particularly sensitive to red light. For the Solar System Challenge, as Taras and Rick Wagner were talking about earlier, this is a particularly interesting time to take pictures of Saturn or take observations of Saturn because those rings are in a very, very unusual situation. And we also have this possibility of seeing shadow transits from Titan. And coincidentally, Saturn happens to be fairly close to Neptune at the moment. It's about 1 degree south of Neptune. So while you're in that neighborhood, shift over, take a look at Neptune as well. Do a comparison of them. Saturn is certainly very, very bright. Neptune is just at the edge of naked eye visibility. So it can be very interesting to see that contrast between two different planets. So there's your challenges for this month. Good luck.
Thank you, Richard. All right, public star parties. So far this year, the weather has not been kind with our public star parties. Our one in May and last month was a washout, unfortunately. But the next one is next weekend, July 18th and 19th at the Carp Public Library, as usual. And I know Depinder's looking for some volunteers. So if anyone is interested in helping out with the public star party, please reach out to Depinder. Our primary date, of course, being the Friday, July the 18th, which, if the weather's bad on the Friday, we'll look to Saturday on the 19th. Timing 9 to 10:30, and of course, volunteers, he usually would like people to be there if they're volunteering around 7:30 to help set up. And there's a link there on how to party with the stars. We're looking for volunteers for it to bring their telescopes for traffic control and just general support. Always got some times here, 8 to 10:45. So you can reach out to Depinder at starparties@ottawa.rasc.ca. All right, Fred Lossing Observatory. For those who aren't familiar with it, as a member, you have the ability to, for a small additional fee, to support the site there, to train on 1, 2, or 3 of these telescopes, and then to use them yourself. And they're really quite great telescopes. I've had the ability to train on one, haven't had a chance to use it yet, but we're getting there. And again, those are located at the Milliken Tail Conservation Area, just outside Almont towards Blickney. Our FLO star parties, which take place at the Fred Lossing Observatory. Our next one is on July 26th. Hopefully the mosquitoes have calmed down by then. It's been a bumper crop this year for the little flying guys, but hopefully they aren't too bad. We do have a mosquito suppression system there, which helps a bit. But for those who are interested, members of the club, we'll see you out there on July 26th. Estelle's book pick of the month, Solar Astronomy, Observing, Imaging, and Studying the Sun, which I know is a big thing for Jim Thompson. But if you're interested in finding out more about solar astronomy, this is a book for you. All right, club information. Our FLO director for the Fred Lossing Observatory, Rick Scholes. The book library is run by Estelle. The Telescope Equipment Loan Library by Peter Schut. Coffee and Conversation. We're still looking for a volunteer to handle the coffee side of things. So if you're interested, please reach out to any member of council. And RASC membership info, you can contact Art Fraser. Tonight, we've had 38 people here in attendance personally and 40 on Zoom for a total of 78 people here this evening. And our organizers and speakers, of course, our meeting chair Paul, myself, Dave Chisholm, Andrea, Tony, Brian, Jim Thompson, Taras, Richard, and Chris Teron up in the booth, making sure all these slides work well. And so a special thanks goes out to Chris because he's always behind the scenes and does a lot of heavy lifting to make these presentations work well. Any comments or ideas, please send them to meetingchair@ottawa.rasc.ca, which is Paul's email address, and which I support him on that. Finally, there's a post-meeting social for those who are interested at Liam McGuire's at 1705 Saint Laurent Boulevard at Innis for snacks, drinks, and just to talk a bit more about astronomy if you're so inclined on a Friday night. All right, thank you, everyone. Our next meeting will be Friday, August the 8th at 7:30 p.m., same place. And for any observations and ideas for talks, please do reach out to meetingchair@ottawa.rasc.ca. And just a reminder, the rest of the museum is closed, so on your way out, just keep that in mind. All right, thank you very much, everyone, and have a great night. Did I miss anything? Okay. I don't know where this. I don't know what we do with this stuff. Okay, I'll take it up. They have